Good morning and welcome to Willow's Green Permaculture. In today's video we got a lot for you lined up. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about what I do and what I don't do with these videos. You will never see me showing you a perfect harvest or perfectly beautiful plants, because that sort of thing just doesn't happen when you're gardening using biodiversity. What you do get is abundance. What you don't necessarily get is the type of unusual perfection that you might see in the grocery store or in some videos, simply because, to get that kind of perfection, I'd have to be a perfectionist. And I'd probably end up stop doing the videos after a couple months, because I'd be so busy trying to make everything look perfect, it would be crazy. It's not healthy to be a perfectionist. And there's just attempting to grow everything that you eat in a year in your gardens. It's enough work all on its own to try and make everything look perfect or be gigantic. Some years we'll get less of something and more of another. One thing will do a little less well and another thing will do more well. With the variety of things we plant, we always in the end have enough for the year and enough to spare for the animals, so we can share with the animals. A lot of people talk about that. What do you do about the animals? Well, we invite them in and they help us. They help us do what we're doing. Obviously, we wouldn't want them to take everything, but we have such a huge variety that it's hard enough for the animals to find what they want. When they do find it, if they take a little bit, that's fine. But it's a lot of work for them, because we use biodiversity, because we mix everything up so much. And because of that as well, some things sometimes don't grow so well. I'm going to show that to you. I'm going to show everything that I can to you, and it's going to be always all about doing this guided by nature. So there's no chemicals, no pesticides, no herbicides, no chemical fertilizers, and none of those other what are called organic pest control products, because one way or another they may be considered organic because they come from nature. But for example, I'm talking about BTK, I'm talking about diatomaceous earth, or I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, and other items that people will use, that you can use on your plants, that are natural, that will kill bugs. But when we use them on our plants, they're going to be used in much higher concentrations than they would be, than they are when they're found in nature. And so it's not really natural. And they're also going to kill all sorts of bugs we don't want to kill. We may want to take care of certain pests, but the products we use don't distinguish. One product might kill a certain type of caterpillar that's eating your plants, but it's also going to kill all the other caterpillars too. And so you have to be careful with that kind of stuff. I prefer to lose a few vegetables to a few bugs and have a healthy, biodiverse ecosystem. And and in these videos, I'll be repeating that message a lot, but hopefully I'll be showing you different applications in different videos. Sometimes some things will come back because it's a different season. So I want to show you, well, this is what this looks like at this point. But that's kind of how we do things, and it's been almost a year since we've been doing these videos, and I'm really happy with you know, we have almost 25,000 subscribers. It's wonderful. But I'd like to share my message with more and more people, and I wonder how I can do that. I wonder how I can get up to 100,000, 200,000 subscribers and more. You're not going to see me putting up thumbnails that appeal to people's anxiety, like, if you don't do this, you will fail. Or 10 vegetables you would be crazy not to plant in May. Like, oh no, I better see what that is, otherwise I'm crazy. Or, oh no, I'm gonna fail if I don't watch this. No. I mean, I realize that people see beyond those things, but sometimes no. Sometimes, you know, there's a lot of anxiety out there in the world, and a thumbnail that appeals to someone's anxiety, just to hook them, it's not healthy. I'd rather not do that. And if that means that I have fewer views, then I have fewer views. You know, however, these videos are important to me, obviously, to Magali and to me, sharing our messages. And because you're here listening, well, then they're important to you too, I guess. And if you have any advice on how I can maybe appeal to more viewers while still keeping the spirit of how we do what we're doing, you know, some fine-tuning, let's say, then feel free to make suggestions. You know, at my age, I think I've developed a thick skin. Anyway, and so let's get started. Harvest time. Broccoli on the chinampa. I was very surprised when our first broccoli harvest came from here on top of the chinampa, which I considered probably the most stressful situation because the roots have to go quite far down to reach the water. However, we have had a lot of rain, and so it was really nice to see how well our chinampa is working. And as you can see here, the water is really flowing. Broccoli's all harvested on the chinampa. I'm just letting it continue to grow to see if I can get either some more broccoli to eat or some seeds. I can get, for example, this little floret grow into seeds. Here's some more over here. Got a whole bunch of them actually. So some of them I will pick to eat, and others I will see if I can get them to grow into seed. And the chinampa now is covered. It's got the potatoes and the broccoli here, and then over here it's covered in squash volunteers and sprawling tomatoes. I showed you the other day how they were all sort of lying down and just putting up their little side shoots. But now all those little side shoots are giving their flowers. Turn it into plants, and because the main stem is lying down these side shoots are extremely well anchored, because all along the main stem where these side shoots started to grow, more roots would have sprouted. I can't really get in there to show you. I don't want to dig anything up, but these tomatoes are doing incredibly. And you know, they say you can't plant tomatoes and squash together, or pumpkin, but these guys are doing real well together. Some of these pumpkin leaves are holding up some of these tomato plants, I think. And then the squash is just growing back there all over. There's some mustard and some jewelweed, and those pink flowers in the back, that's Joe Pye weed. And the squash is growing on top of all of that stuff. Beautiful. I haven't watered this. Look at this garden. I have not watered this garden once, except when I transplanted the broccoli. That's the only time, and when I transplanted the tomato. It's the only time I watered, but I have not otherwise been watering. It's just the rain that has kept this so healthy. I'm surprised because I didn't think the layer of compost and stuff was thick enough, but it looks like it was just right to allow the roots to go down through the compost, through the wood chips, through the branches, down to the water underneath this floating chinampa garden. Now the broccoli's coming along in the main garden, as well as, it's hard to see, but there's a bit of cauliflower flowering there now. I'm going to harvest this broccoli today or tomorrow. It's just suddenly ripe, suddenly got ready on me. Nice. Here we're at the complete other end of the land. Just coming past the house and starting to head toward the creek after the water has flown basically through the land. It's very important to maintain thick vegetation along any irrigation canals or drainage canals that you may have in order to prevent erosion. First zucchini from the Three Sisters demo garden. I am pretty sure this is an Atlantic giant from a seed from a very large Atlantic giant pumpkin that I had grown from seeds that I had grown from a very small Atlantic giant from the previous year that had gotten attacked by bugs. They put a hole in it and it was dying, and I put sage and yarrow inside the hole, and the pumpkin survived, and ripened and gave seeds, and then gave a very large Atlantic giant 2 years ago, from which I kept the seeds. And I think this is a baby of that one. Just to give you an idea of the size. Mid-July. It's pretty big. I like the hog panels so much that I decided to improvise another one using some saplings that I had to cull out of the forest and create some trellising for the Malabar spinach. As I was cutting some of the pieces of wood, some of the bark didn't want to cut properly, so I just peeled it off and realized, oh, this is going to make some good cording. So I tied the trellising together with jute, but I also tied it with the bark as well. Here's the trellis. A couple days later, after I filmed it. Malabar spinach, once it gets going, it grows like crazy, especially with the weather we've had, all the rain and the hot sun. Just beautiful. You know, regular spinach that I grow would never grow in all this heat. So this is great to have. And these things flower too, and they have such beautiful, well, all plants flower, but these have really beautiful flowers that last a long time, and I can use the seeds that they produce to grow next year. All of these Malabar spinach are from seeds I collected last year. Can't wait to see them all the way up there. Here's some onions that are ready to harvest. The first harvest, actually a second. About a couple weeks ago, I probably harvested a couple dozen more. So a second harvest of small cooking onions. Typical morning harvest for food for the day, and whatever's too much, we will put away, we'll freeze or dry or can or do something else with. Some calendula for putting the petals into rice. Some peas for eating fresh, and some of them maybe just blanching, cooking a very little bit, because but I still like them like this, raw. Couple zucchini. Well, no, sorry, that's a cucumber. There's a couple zucchini. I'm using it as a zucchini, but it's a baby spaghetti squash, but we're gonna get lots of those, so use it as a zucchini. Here's some peas that are a little bit too ripe to eat raw, need more cooking, so these we're probably just gonna freeze and put with other peas that are like that for using in the winter. Whole bunch of garlic chives as we wait for our onion harvest. Here are some pumpkin vines. We're growing somewhere we didn't need them to be growing. I just keep cutting them at the base to eat, and they keep coming back, which is kind of nice. Here are some onions while we wait for our bigger harvests. And here's some broccoli. This year, it's the first time I successfully grow a lot of broccoli from seed, because in the past I tried to sow it directly in the garden and it never worked. This year I sowed it in pots, 1 seed per pot, maybe 2, and then I transplanted it when it was a good size, and now I'm getting good broccoli. Love these calendula. Here's another harvest a couple days later. Some dino kale, some beets, more calendula, some basil, more zucchini, and then even more beets and some more broccoli too. After cutting all the leaves off the broccoli stems that I had brought inside, I kept the nicest leaves, stuck them in a bunch in the fridge, and we are going to ferment them. We're going to cut them up like as if they were a couple heads of cabbage, because it's basically the same thing. Cut them up, stick them in a jar, add some salt, and ferment them. Here are some daylilies. These are an unusual cultivar called Hemerocalis fulva quanso. They're a triple daylily, it would seem. It's like each bloom has 3 blooms inside them. The daylily only lasts a day. A flower only lasts a day. And so because they're edible, I like to, because they're not going to last into the second day anyways. So sometime during that first day, I'll harvest some and use the petals as lettuce. They're quite meaty tasting. Now the plant can be invasive. These ones we didn't plant. They were here when we came and surrounded by grass. So they don't really spread that much here anyway. Not for the moment anyway. I'll keep an eye on them. They're sweet. And so many petals compared to the regular ones. Oops. Daylilies. For every flower I picked, there's another one about to open today or tomorrow. Those are too far to pick. Just leave them there. As we're looking at these beautiful cardinal flowers in our rain garden, I just wanted to let you know that at the very end of this video, after this second part, which is about turtles, afterwards at the very end, after I kind of do my conclusion, there's going to be a whole bunch of sections where I'm just walking through the gardens, having a look quietly at different parts of the gardens and what's going on. If you'd like to check that out, it's going to be no talk. It's just going to be the music and the views. I finally got around to building the snapping turtle nest protector. Here's the turtle nest. This metal mesh is attached to the frame with these 1x2s that are screwed to the frame. The frame is fairly large and heavy pieces of recycled wood. These are much bigger than 2x4s. And then the holes are 2 inches wide and 1 inch high for the little turtles to come out. This end, the piece of wood, I didn't bother cutting to make even with the square. I just did it like this to make it a little bit harder for raccoons to lift. They shouldn't be able to lift this, especially because the mesh comes out further here and I've got the stone on top of it and stone up against the sides. So it should be rather hard for any raccoons to lift this. And when I attach the sign, because I'm going to attach a sign on this side and attach it right about there, I'm going to drive that sign into the ground and then screw it to the side of the nest. And where I'm going to drive it into the ground is well away from where the eggs are. the mesh, this metal mesh, which all this material is recycled. The metal mesh, which is very, very, very stiff, very hard, is attached in place with these 1x2s, which are screwed in to the wood beneath, holding the mesh in place. I wanted to use that instead of staples, because I think raccoons are strong enough to pull a mesh out that's stapled in place. And this wood beneath, it's about, looks like it's also recycled wood. Looks like it's about a 3x6, something like that. It's quite heavy. And so, plus the sign I've hammered into the ground and then attached it to the base of the nest with 3 screws. So that should hold it in place, plus all these rocks that are surrounding it, holding it in place as well. And then the mesh comes out past here, and so I've put rocks beneath it and on top to help hold this in place. And then we have the 3 holes right there where the the baby turtles are going to come out, and they are going to hopefully walk this way, past this tree. They might take a shorter cut than this, and then down into the creek. Each piece of wood is simply screwed together with 2 screws going through the wood into the other piece. So 8 screws hold the base together, and then there are about, I think it's 2 screws in each one of these 1x2s holding the mesh in place. And then a few days after finishing the nest protector, this happened. Part of this life, living a deep connection with nature and growing our food, guided by nature, is also paying attention to the animals around us and sometimes having to come to their help. This turtle can heal. And this past week was no exception. As I was going to pick up some material for a job that I have to do, I saw a little eastern painted turtle on the side of the highway, on its back, waving its feet in the air. So I went and pulled over to see what was going on. Bring this home and see if we can help it. So I took all sorts of pictures and I sent them to the Ontario Reptile and Amphibian Conservation page on Facebook, and they gave me the number to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center. I called them up, and within 12 hours I had a volunteer at my door who took the little eastern painted turtle with her all the way to Peterborough to the Ontario Turtle Conservation Center. And that's where the little turtle is right now. I'm still waiting for news on how she's doing. But I think that she's going to be fine because she was very active. In the initial little box I put her in with stone and water, she didn't like being in there, and she escaped 3 times. I'd put her, while I was watching her, I'd put her sort of close to the creek, and she kept trying to get out. Well, she could get out, and she wanted to go to the creek, I guess, but I didn't want to let her in the creek while she was injured like that. And so that Facebook site said, no, don't put her in water, keep her dry, keep her warm. And so I transferred her to this bucket and put some old t-shirts in there so she could stay dry and be warm. And she was very active in there all night and in the next morning. And by mid-morning, the volunteer was here for the turtle taxi. Let's check out and see how everything's doing in the greenhouse. These tomatoes are just climbing everywhere because there may not be as many insects coming in here. As that guy from Pawpaw Ridge says, I like how he says it. Tickle your tomatoes. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle your tomatoes. To mix that pollen, mix the two parts of the flower so that it gets pollinated. Make some tomatoes. Make some baby tomatoes. And over here we have some cantaloupe getting up onto the table. And over on this side we've got watermelon. More tomatoes to tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Birdhouse gourd growing up here. Loofah over here in the corner. There's some kale seed that's drying up in the corner there. That's what I'd call, that's the front door of the greenhouse, which I keep open all night long. You know, with these shelves are kind of blocking the way, so big animals shouldn't come in. Too much of an obstacle, I think. And I like to keep it open so that the night moths can come in, because the birdhouse gourd and the loofah and the other birdhouse gourd, their flowers are pollinated by night moths. And so if I don't keep that door open, they're not going to be able to get in. There are the rest of the cantaloupe and other melons over there. Tomatoes. I had my little thermometer monitor. Looks very different in here than from the spring. We got these guys coming up on the table. Oh, we got a birdhouse gourd coming up on the table too. Pretty soon these watermelon are going to come up on the table. As we come to the end of the wild black raspberry season, the red raspberries and the golden raspberries and also the blackberries are starting to give a harvest. Be able to show you that next time. I hope you liked the video. I hope you found it useful. And if you found it useful, then share it with your friends. Don't be shy. Look at this video. And if you haven't done so yet, then subscribe to our channel. Support what we're doing just by subscribing. And then maybe you'll be able to see more videos, which is more of a support. So have a great week. And we will see you